Hello, in this video I'm going to show an example of using the residential end use load profiles results, accessing them through two different methods. I'm starting here on our end use load profiles webpage and scrolling down to the dataset access section. I'm going to be using the example of aggregated profiles in various means from my state of Colorado. So I'm going to start with these pre-aggregated load profiles. Open that up. This is our data lake on ODI, where we have our pre-aggregated load profiles and our individual building load profiles published. So I'm going to go ahead and download the README and go to the 2021, which is our release. There's Comstock options and ResDoc options. ResDoc is residential, Comstock is commercial. Because I'm looking at statewide aggregates, I'm going to choose the AMY 2018, which is from actual weather data from the year 2018, which will inherently be harmonized across the state. TMY weather is typical weather, which is individual at each location, at each weather file location. So here I'm in the ResDoc AMY 2018 release 1. And I'm going to download some metadata. Well, first I'm going to take a look at the citation. It's of interest to me, but I'm not going to download it now. I'm going to download the time series aggregates metadata, which is in TSV format. And I'm going to download some geographic information, specifically the spatial tract lookup table and the data dictionary and the enumeration dictionary. The upgrade dictionary isn't useful currently because end use load profiles does not have upgrades, it's baseline only. All right, I'm making sure metadata takes a few minutes to download. It's a rather large file. So I'm going to now go to the time series aggregates and I'm looking for the one for Colorado. So by state of Colorado, the options are by building type. So I'm going to look today at the single family detached file. Save that. All right. So let's take a look at the README. The README is in Markdown MD format, which can be opened in any text editor or in a web browser. So I'm going to grab this and put it here. There's a whole lot of information in here. The structure of the directory, citation information, information about the metadata, formatting information. And this is all up to date. And information about the various other files that have metadata information. Let's take a look at the aggregate. So this Colorado single family detached, which is a CSV file. My computer is set to automatically open CSVs using Excel by default. If yours is not set up the way, you can open Excel first and then open the file from within Excel. Excel can open CSVs, no problem. So this is the total energy consumption in time series format for single family detached homes in Colorado. There are two input fields here, the two that we sort of filtered by default when we did the aggregate. So we have state and we have building type from REX. REX is the Residential Energy Consumption Survey, which is put on by the US EIA. We have the timestamps. These are in Eastern Standard Time. They're not in local time because of the aggregations that we did are often across time zones. All aggregations, all data that we are putting out is in Eastern Standard Time. Our modeling does take daylight savings into account, but it is not reflected. The results of that are, but the timestamps are standard time without daylight savings adjustment. So the first row shows the total energy consumption by fuel and end use for the first 15 minutes of 2018. The last row shows the last 15 minutes from quarter to midnight of 2018. And there's totals by different fuel uses. So this column AI here has the total electricity energy consumption every 15 minutes. Then there's fuel oil, there's natural gas, there's propane, there's the total summed all across all fuels. All of these are in kilowatt hours for the 15 minutes, which is a very standard unit for electricity consumption. It's less standard for the other fuels, but that's what we have here is kilowatt hours per 15 minutes time. There's different end uses. Maybe you want to look at lighting. We have, I think, several lighting ones. So this is exterior lighting. There's garage lighting. There's interior lighting. There's, let's see, refrigerators. And so this is the column for refrigerators. It varies less than some of the others, as one might expect. It's a really cool data set. If you want to know more about the homes that went into this data set, the way to do that is to open up that 1.5 gigabyte metadata file. I'm going to go ahead and open it now. It sometimes takes 3 to 5 minutes to load for me, so I am going to pause the video while it loads. All right, that was 3 minutes, very true to form. I want to go back real quick to the results file. And over here on the left, there are 2 columns. One that says how many models are included. So these are 6,036 unique building energy models run with different parameters, with distributions set up according to all of the data that we used, everything from the census, from the EIA, from every data source we could get our hands on. And those models represent almost 1.5 million single-family detached homes in the state of Colorado. So these totals represent all of the single-family detached homes in Colorado. And this metadata file, each row in this metadata file is a home that we modeled for the end use load profiles project. There's just one metadata file for the whole project, for the whole residential side of the project, I should say. There's not a separate one by each state or building type or anything. So it's a large file, and you have to filter it down to see your area of interest. So we are looking at, we want to filter down in this case by state. We'll see just the state of Colorado. And we want to filter down to single family detached, which is going to be under building type Rex. And to check that we have the right number of filters, you can see down here we have 6,036 buildings. So these 6,036, I should say 6,036 homes, because we model at the individual home level, not the building level, which for some of the multifamily are different things. So 6,036 homes, and these are the distributions. These are the individual models we ran. And there's the building ID here if you ever want to go pull out that result from that individual building. But more often what I'm at least wanting to do is I want to look at, what was the distribution of vintages? Fields, they're basically interchangeable. And so then I can come here and I can make a histogram, or I could make a pie chart. I can look at the crosstabs between maybe the vintages and, I don't know, the wall insulation for these 6,000 models. And these should represent the building stock as it was in 2018 in Colorado. Some of this terminology may not be terribly straightforward. We do our best, but we also published accessory files so that you can get a better sense of this. So we have the data dictionary, which I'll open up, which has every input and every output, I believe. Description of what that means. So, and also the valid options. So maybe I want to look at the insulation wall options. And this will then tell me not just for Colorado, but for the entire project, here were the insulation wall options that we used. And here is what we mean by this insulation wall. It's the wall construction type and insulation level. Maybe we want to look at, I'll do vintage again. And so this is not when the home was maybe remodeled. This is original year built, real year of construction. Every parameter that we use as an input and every output is in here. Some of these may still be a little bit hard to decipher. So we have also this enumeration dictionary. The enumeration dictionary goes through every valid input and describes what we mean as best as we can explain it. Again, there's a whole lot of information in here. Additionally, for geospatial stuff, we can use the spatial tract lookup table, which has the codes we used here. So the codes we used for the tract, the PUMA, and then what that corresponds to in terms of states, census divisions, reads, balancing areas, the county, the weather file, all of the crosstabs for all of these, so that you can get a sense, you can correctly find the PUMA or the county, whatever it is that you're looking for, the custom region, which is not the most common thing. And so you can use this to better understand the aggregates that we've provided, or you might find that you are interested in a different aggregation. So to do that, what you would do is you go back to the metadata file, and first you want to check that the aggregation you're interested in is a reasonable aggregation to look at. So let's say that I'm only interested in older homes, older single-family homes that are single-family detached and in the state of Colorado. So I'm going to filter again on vintage. I'm going to say it has to be older than 1960, let's say. And I only want single story, so I will find that old. And the key thing then is to look at this number down here. So I have 840 models run. And that's a number I'm comfortable looking at an aggregation of 840 buildings. If that was 7, that would not be a meaningful thing to look at. 840 is big enough that I can draw some amount of reasonable conclusions. I generally want, let's say, 1,000 before I'm going to trust it too much. 840 is reasonably close to that. So I'm going to go back to our website. And I'm going to go to the web data viewer. You do need an account to access this. They're free. They're not hard to get. Log into mine. All right, and again, I'm going to look at the aggregations by state for 2018. And I'm going to again be looking at Colorado. This might take a second to load. There we go. So I'm going to choose the state, this one. There we go. Once I choose that state, I can come down here. I should mention this is in beta. We are continuing to make changes to it, so every time it looks very slightly different, but this is what you should generally expect. Once you choose a state, you can come down and see the graphs will have sort of turned on. And you have the annual results and you have the hourly annual results. This is for the whole year. So right here, this is like 7 a.m. summed over all 7 a.m.s for the year. And you can highlight different end uses and they'll show up. So like cooling might be of interest, or maybe you want to look at refrigerator, maybe lighting, right? Lighting's kind of fun because it's changes, right? It gets higher when it gets darker, and that's sort of true all year round. Versus like refrigerators are kind of the same all day long, all year long. But to go a little bit more in depth, you can click on Explore Time Series. And let's say I want to only look at electricity and I want to filter down like we had talked about to, well, first of all, I need to make sure I'm only in single family detached. I'm already in Colorado. I need the Rex building type. I'm putting on some filters here. And the other filters that I want to do are single story and older, so vintage of older than 1960. So we'll save that. And I'm going to update the search. May take a moment. All right, here we are. And here is our summed for that filtered result. So single family detached, the 840 approximately homes that we found in that metadata file. And similarly here, I can hover and look at just the cooling. I can turn off the end uses that are below cooling so that cooling is now has a flat axis to start with. It's more easy to visually interpret. But here in Colorado, we don't really have a year-round cooling season. So looking at a one-day aggregate of the whole year for cooling isn't terribly informative. So I can go back up here and say, let's just look at the cooling season, which we'll call it July and August. Update again. Might take a moment again. There we go. Just like before, except now, you know, cooling is much bigger because we're only averaging, or we're only looking visually at the aggregation of two months, our peak cooling season. Can similarly turn off the visualization of the end uses underneath it and get a visual cooling load profile for single family detached homes that are single story and older in the state of Colorado. This is really cool. You can play with this quite a lot. There's only so much in-depth analysis you can do. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back to full year. I find it works better that way. And then export the 15-minute option. I always prefer to export the 15-minute option. That is going to give me 15-minute time interval data for every end use for the whole year for the set of buildings that I have filtered down to. So single family detached, older, one-story homes in the state of Colorado. And then I can use whatever tools I have at my disposal to do analysis with that. All of the timestamps on the data viewer are in EST, Eastern Standard Time, as will the timestamps in the download will be Eastern Standard Time. Everything we've published is Eastern Standard Time. There's also, I don't know if you can see it while this is running, but there's an FAQ here, which has answers to a lot of questions that we've gotten or that we've been asking each other over the past several months. All right, my data is ready. I download that here. It has a very generic name, so I'll give it something more specific. So single family detached, older, one story, 15-minute DLP data. Opening that up to take a look at it. So the fields are in a different order than they were in the pre-aggregated data, but it's the same fields. I can go look for the totals. So we have the electricity total, the total site energy, fuel, oil, natural gas, propane, every timestamp for the whole year. Eastern Standard Time, just like all of the other data. 15-minute intervals, everything is in kilowatt hours. I hope this has been useful. And I hope that you are able to make good use of the data. We look forward to hearing what you are doing with this data.